All right, let's do this. So welcome to today's webinar. My name is Steph Ramos. I am the events manager here at Internet Creations. Today's webinar is our simple survey release. We are going to be talking about how to personalize your survey experience using Skip Logic. So I am really excited to get into it. Let's introduce our speakers.
Thanks, Steph. So I am Adrian Lieberman. I am the product marketing manager here at Internet Creations, and I've been here for about a year and a half, a little more. But I am really excited to talk about this new feature with all of you today.
My name is Howard Yermish. I'm the Director of Product here at Internet Creations. I've been at Internet Creations about 4 years, which in quarantine days is actually about 3 millennia. That's the quarantine equivalent, considering how much we've lost track of time. But I'm really excited to introduce to these webinars our new Senior Product Manager, Peter. Peter, give us a little say hello.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Peter Camille. So excited you could join us. I've been at Internet Creations for 4 months, 2 months in person, 2 months in quarantine, adding up to 4. So really excited to be presenting today.
All right, so a little housekeeping before we get started. We are, in quarantine, self-isolating, those kinds of things, but we want to know where you are. So tell us where you are currently either self-isolating from or working from. Use the little questions box so that we can kind of see. We currently are in the where are you slide. Where are you? Normally we'd be in Hamilton, New Jersey at our headquarters, but we are in different places around the country. Our other office is in Dallas, Texas. Our team down there is also in self-isolation. But there's me down at Exit 4 in South Jersey. Where are you, Peter?
I'm rocking out from Saraville, New Jersey.
Nice. Adrian, you're nearby me, right?
Yes, I am. I'm frolicking here in South Jersey with the flowers and the butterflies and the sunshine.
Nice.
So we have a whole bunch of answers coming through already. We have people tuning in from Rochester, New York, the Jersey Shore, which will be open this weekend, which is exciting for a lot of people who are dying to get out of the house. Outside of Boston, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, San Francisco, Israel, Colorado, so all over the country and the world. So thank you so much for being with us today. We're really excited to get into our agenda at this point.
Awesome. Okay, yeah, let's get started. So the first thing we are going to review is the importance of feedback and how this applies to the Service Experience Suite. Next, we're going to review the much anticipated feature, Skip Logic. And then we are going to review some FAQs for this release and a look ahead. So we're going to try doing something fun today. We're going to start off with a poll. So I'd love to ask all of you, what annoys you the most when you take a survey? So what's the one thing that gets under your skin and just demotivates you to even take them? We'd love to hear your feedback on this. So if you could go ahead and fill in which answer best applies to you, that would be great. We will open the poll for all of you to go ahead and put your answers in there.
I will tell you that the thing that annoys me about surveys is when you get the reminders. And this really happened to me last fall. It was a notable example. I got a new car. I was really excited. They sent me that survey that says, hey, congratulations for spending a lot of money and buying this car. So we want to know about the purchase experience and the first time that you started using the car, things like that. So I got the survey and I clicked on it and I took it, and it was crazy long, literally a 20+ minute survey. But because I'm in the business of surveys, I tend to actually finish surveys just to kind of see what they're doing. So I finished the survey, and then a week later, I get another email that says, reminder, we'd like for you to take this survey. And I was like, I did. And in little tiny text, there was a, by the way, if you already took the survey, you can ignore this reminder. And I thought, maybe they should be using some kind of like customer relation management system to know that I already took the survey. So good news, I got the reminder. Let's see, I got it 5 times. So 6 times in total, the initial invitation and 5 extra reminders. And I took it on the first one. So I really get sort of, for lack of a better term, I get very, very upset when people just keep reminding you of a thing that you've already done. And that's one of the reasons I love the way Salesforce can work, because it should already know that I've completed the survey. So let's give people, oh, let's see some results. Let's share those results out. All right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so these answers are not that surprising to me. So the main one we have here is surveys are too long, often with redundant questions. I'm not too super surprised here. What about you guys?
No,
Oh,
so
not at all.
yeah, not at all. Length of surveys is kind of your overwhelming winner, but it's also really interesting. Like people, had the same problem in terms of annoying reminders. The incentives, that's another one where sometimes people bribe you. They're like, for 20, we'll give you $25 or a chance at winning a $50 gift card or something like that, because they know that their surveys are probably too long and really just not worth the effort. So yeah, not
Yeah,
unexpected results.
definitely not. Yeah, so it definitely seems like there's a common thread here. It's these surveys being personalized to the experience and keeping them brief. So these negative survey experiences are actually brought up in Seth Godin's book, Permission Marketing. He goes into why surveys are annoying and how you can get better results. You want to make sure that your surveys are focusing on these 3 key principles to be successful. So the first one is anticipated. So asking customers for feedback based on an action that they remember taking. So this is super critical. You want to make sure you don't send a survey after, let's say, an event that somebody attended about a month or so after, because they're not really going to remember the event at that point, and you're not going to get the best quality answers, nor they probably end up not taking the survey. So you want to make sure you get it right in that course of action. The next one is personal. So rather than surveying everyone, think about creating a one-to-one feedback opportunity. So this is a great example. So if you are sending out surveys like a huge email blast, that might not work as well if you're trying to ask people maybe about a certain product. Maybe if you could see what features people are using on that product and send them surveys specifically based on that. It's going to be very personal to what they're doing. And if you have a great CRM system like Salesforce, you can automate some of these things. Yes. So the next one is relevance. So let the feedback request dynamically adjust based on what the customer just told you. So this actually applies really well to our feature that we are going to showcase to you guys today. I don't want to give away too much, but basically with the relevancy, think about, for example, if you're doing a customer service inquiry and you send out a request at first asking, how did they enjoy the customer service experience? Was it positive? Was it negative? And then you have survey questions that are specifically based on what type of experience they had. So it's a really choose your own adventure type of scenario. And that keeps this all being very personal, very relevant, and then you can anticipate what kind of surveys you want to do in the future. So this actually flows very well into our service experience suite model. You might recognize this methodology if you attended our webinars before. This is our service experience suite. We at Internet Creations believe this customer service model must focus on 4 key areas: responsiveness, utilization, personalization, and feedback in order to create the ultimate customer service experience. These 4 interconnected areas create a holistic method that moves beyond just treating the symptoms and focuses on the solutions. But today we're going to primarily focus on feedback. Feedback reveals your customer's actual experience communicating with your brand. When using feedback and metrics, you can evolve processes to meet your customers' expanding needs as they continue to evolve. So let's do a little bit temperature check. This is kind of actually real relevant with feedback on what's currently happening right now in this current climate. Feedback is more essential than ever before, I think, with this current crisis that we're all dealing with. Right? While being quarantined and everything going with the pandemic, it's very uncertain. We have, our economy is quite uncertain right now. Our health is uncertain. So I think customers right now really want to find certainty in a time of confusion, and it can be a great comfort for them. And feedback actually doesn't mean just surveys. You want to check in with your customers, even if it's just an email checkup of how are you holding up with all this? How are they balancing working from home and teaching their kids? These are all really essential for human interaction, That's what it all kind of feeds back to, because it's really essential right now to create that bond and trust between the customer and the company.
I
And
think a thing I want to add here,
yeah,
sorry, Adrian, I
go for
can't stop myself. I think is
it. Go for it.
during this pandemic, people are like the things that they're going to remember are the personal relationships that you create. And if your survey programs aren't feeling that personalization, if they're not really tying in that way, it's a real missed opportunity to even something as simple as a survey to start the conversation, create that bond between you and your customer, because that's something that's going to last way beyond the current pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, this is the essential now and forever, right? All throughout. So yeah, thank you for that, Howard. So yeah, I think this is really important for us to kind of take a closer look at also the customer interactions. This is a really good time for it right now. So maybe you want to look in, why did a sales fall through? Is it happening because of all the things that are happening in the current climate? Or are there other areas that you can actually take the time right now to fix and see how you can work through the process? How did a support experience go? Has it been positive or has it been negative? And how can you also kind of fix that so that your customers are feeling very supported right now? It's super essential. And then also checking in with your employees. I mean, that kind of sometimes goes to the wayside, but you can, use surveys to check in with your employees and see how they're doing to help boost morale and make sure that they're, they are getting fully supported, because overall, happy employees equal happy customers. You want to make sure that that's all worked through. So just reiterating back to feedback and just talking about why it's so critical, not just now, just in general, to show that you're listening to the voice of your customer and show that you're responsive to your customer's needs by listening to your customer, so you can anticipate that, just like Seth Godin's principles. And by doing that, you're going to help instill confidence in your customers and build trust and loyalty, which is overall going to protect the brand reputation. That's super important right now.
Cool. So thanks so much, Adrian. So this is Pete. I'm going to give you guys an overview here of Simple Survey. And I want to start by pointing out that, our purpose here at Internet Creations is to help you deliver the perfect service experience every time. And striving to do this really requires capturing the voice of your customer and taking action. So Simple Survey is really an awesome tool that anyone can use for capturing instant feedback that helps you take action for things like quickly finding out about unhappy customers so you can mitigate the damage, or learn what features prospects and customers want most. This will help shape your product roadmap and really help you grow your business. And so Simple Survey delivers on this promise by making it super easy to create surveys. And then we automate, when those surveys get sent. And then most importantly is to follow up, measure the results, and follow up. And best of all, no integration is required. Since it's 100% native Salesforce app, your survey data resides directly in Salesforce. So this means your surveys can be related to cases, contacts, leads, or even custom objects. And it's this increased visibility that gives you that 360-degree view of the customer. And this helps everyone in your organization deliver the perfect service experience every time they interact with the customer. So, so how do you go about, building surveys that aren't annoying and, don't get ignored, get completed and don't get abandoned in the middle, that collect meaningful data that you can take action on, and that reflect and leave a positive, that reflect your brand and leave a really positive impression. So at Internet Creations, our philosophy to designing these effective surveys is to make them simple, friendly, and timely. So simple means to keep them short. Howard, can you give some tips on how to create short, simple surveys?
Absolutely. For me, I always start with think 5 questions. Beyond that, you're probably making your customer work harder than they need to. But you might want more than 5 questions worth of data. So you might want to make sure that you're saying things like, all right, I only want to show 1 question to this kind of customer or another customer. When I think about thumbs up, thumbs down, if someone liked what they saw, what are the questions that person should be asked? And if someone didn't like what they saw, what are the questions you'd be most interested from that? So making sure that the overall response is 5 questions or less, that's a great way to sort of ensure that people are having the opportunity to complete the survey before they've even had a chance to say this is too long.
Cool. And some other tips is, keep a multiple choice and, only give one open text box. Uh, People don't like filling in a lot of open text box. The next thing is to keep them friendly, which means the survey is engaging and easily accessible. Now, Adrian, what advice do you have for making surveys that are friendly?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, I think keeping your questions very casual. They don't have to be, super formal. You can make it very conversational and fun. You can put little jokes in there and things like that will make it more engaging.
Cool. And some other things you can do is, include your logo in the background image. Make sure that it's engaging and fits your brand. And it also has to, look good and be accessible on multiple devices and screen sizes. Has to work on desktop, mobile, and tablets. So keep that in mind with your design. And, one-click surveys that appear right inside the email, so they can answer the question directly. And the third thing I mentioned was timely, which means sending transactional to surveys. So you don't want to randomly blast customers to take a survey. For the best response rates, send the survey right after a customer interaction. So, we're super excited to be unveiling one of the most requested features out there, which is Skip Logic. And Skip Logic really builds on our philosophy that the best surveys are simple, friendly, and timely. So Skip Logic allows you to personalize the survey experience because respondents only see and answer the questions that apply to them. And so this is what keeps your survey short and your completion rates high. So without any further ado, let me show you what the customer experience is like for a survey with Skip Logic. So here we have a customer satisfaction survey where I want to know on a scale of 1 to 5 how satisfied a customer is with a support agent. And so if I enter a high score of 3 or more, I want it to skip all the other questions and just go right to the end. But I want to know if someone gave a low score of a 1 or 2, and I want to know why they gave a low score. So I'm going to click on 4 here. And it skips all the questions, just goes right to the end, says, hey, thank you very much. We've kept the survey as short as it possibly could be. But if the person actually clicked 2, then they get asked the additional questions that don't get skipped. So I want to know if it was a low score, what issues did you have with your support experience? And they can check all that apply. But if they specifically chose that, hey, it took too long, or the time it took to resolve this issue was too long, I want to delve even a little bit deeper. And I want to know, well, what were your expectations? How much time did you really think it should take for us to resolve your problem? And so this gets you, lets you take that extra layer deep, but keep the surveys really short, really personalized. And this is what's going to let you achieve those really high response rates. So, now Adrian's going to tell us a little bit more about how you can use Skip Logic to open up opportunities to build a survey strategy to capture feedback throughout the customer journey.
Thanks, Peter. Yeah, so this is actually a really great model. It's very fun and engaging of all of us. But this is a model that we use for the customer journey to multiple touch points to capture feedback. So we have different models, but this is one specifically to showcase to you guys. So after an event, we'd love to, we try to capture feedback, find out how people enjoyed the event, if they felt it was informative, especially if it was about a certain product. We hope to carry them to a free trial and survey them based on, what they liked about the product in the free trial, and then hopefully taking them then to a purchase. And at that point, that's a really good time to start asking them what made them want to purchase and what aspects of the product entice them enough to purchase. This is really helpful for your marketing team. People like me really love hearing this because we can take those key points and try and make sure we use those in some of our collateral and other things for the product updates and things like that. And then you hopefully take them to the point of adoption. So this is at the point where it's really integrated into their system. and how they use it day to day. So getting an understanding of that is also very helpful, and where there are issues so we can try to improve the whole process. And that kind of takes you through also support, which actually is all throughout this entire journey. And that's super critical to feel like your customers supported throughout if they have questions about the product and how to use it, or if there's issues, etc. And then at that point, since we have captured feedback all throughout the journey, there's renewal time. And at that point, we feel very confident that we can then take them to continue using the products and services that we have. So this is our journey, but Howard, I know you have different conversations. You speak with hundreds of our customers all throughout. So give me some of your feedback from this.
Yeah, I do. This is something where every customer that I work with usually starts with one core piece of the puzzle that they're going for. It's often support. They've had some kind of service interaction, and then they're like, I want to capture that. But what's really interesting is when they start finding another point along the path. So maybe they have a team that does project delivery. And so what they want to do is at key milestone points in those projects, survey, oh, we've gotten to this status of this project. All right, we're going to send a survey to the project stakeholder. That could also be like, oh, well, we do free trials. Once that free trial is at a certain point, find out how are they doing. Maybe if they uninstall the product, or if the trial expires, send surveys specifically for that. Basically, think about your data moving in Salesforce. If it goes from one state to the next, consider that that's happening because the customer is doing something and there's an activity relevant to them. And if it makes sense to capture feedback and ask them what they're doing, that's a great opportunity to build a survey program around that data moving in Salesforce.
Yeah, those are great points, Howard. Thanks. I really want to encourage everyone to take the time and think through what your customer journey is and map that out and identify where those touch points are. It's a great opportunity to collect that feedback and improve the experience for your customer. So right now I'm going to show you how to design surveys with Skip Logic, while also giving you some examples of how it can be used to capture relevant feedback at different points in the customer journey. So let's start with the example of, how would you do this like right after a webinar? So for example, let's say I want to gauge interest in a product and set up times to follow up with prospective customers based on when they plan to make a purchase decision. So first of all, let me start by walking you through all of the steps needed to turn on Skip Logic.
It's a lot of steps, a lot of steps. All right, go for it.
So there it is.
Okay, that's it.
I just turned on Skip Logic. In
Damn, that
case
was
you weren't paying
hard.
attention, let me show you again.
Oh,
So
yes.
literally, that's really all it takes.
Mind
I'm
blown.
One
blown.
click of a button, you have now enabled Skip Logic, and now you can design surveys and questionnaires with Skip Logic. So let's look at this example of after a webinar. So here I have a question of, we are planning to make a purchase decision within the next, and I've set this up as a pick list, and I've entered in various values of choosing from 1 month to 1 to 3 months, 3 to 6 months, and 6 months to a year. And Skip Logic is enabled on this specific question so that it'll skip the question as long as the rating was a thumbs down. So if someone is not interested in this product after a webinar, this question will be asked. Well, will be skipped so it doesn't get asked. And so let's take a look at what this looks like. So, hey, are you interested in the product you learned about in today's webinar? No, sorry, I really wasn't that interested. In which case, it's just going to say, hey, thank you very much for your feedback. I know you weren't interested. But if you were interested and you click that, yeah, this looks like an interesting product, then I want to get some additional information. And this is really useful for my salespeople to know, which customers that attended the webinar, we should talk to first. And so we can prioritize, our sales team, and get the best, effort and return on our sales team and our sales effort.
Absolutely. And I think what Peter showed here is, based on that initial click, he's varying what questions that you see. But what's really great is in this next example that Peter's going to show you, which is sort of our core example around the support experience, he's going to show, hey, it's not just the initial question, it's you can use subsequent questions to create other skip conditions. So Peter, can you walk us through this scenario?
Yeah, so this is the one that I initially demoed to you before. So, I'm going to show you how skip logic works, in the email that I showed you earlier. So this is the case where a low score of a 1 or 2, I want to know what issues they had with their support experience. But, if the issue was, the time to resolve, then I want to find out, what their expectation was. So how do we design this survey? So for this survey, the first, I've got multiple questions. So I want to know what issues did you have with the support experience, check all that apply, and how much time did you expect it to take to address your issue? So let's set up skip logic for the first question. So once again, this is a pick list, and I've got a bunch of choices of it took too long for the initial response, the agent understanding the issue, the solution did not resolve the issue, and the time it took to resolve the issue. So I'm going to set up skip logic on this particular question based on my rating. And as long as that rating is greater than greater than or equal to 3, I want to skip this question. And the other thing you'll notice here that's new is the ability to randomize the answer order. And what this does is it eliminates option bias for all the different options that are in a pick list. So let me go ahead and save this question. And you'll notice now the little skip logic icon appears next to it. So let's go into the next question. Again, this is another pick list question based on the question of how much time do you expect it to take to address your issue. And we've got choices of less than 5 minutes, 5 to 15, 15 to an hour, and 1 to 2 hours. And once again, I want to skip this question, but now instead of based on the rating, it's going to be based on the next question of, what issues did you have with your support experience? And there's a whole bunch of different conditions that you can choose from here. And I'm going to choose to skip this if it does not contain the answer on the previous question of time it took to resolve this issue. Now I could select multiple ones if necessary, but I'm just going with the time it took to resolve the issue for this particular case. And so the beauty of this is you really don't have to, the way this was designed, again, is to keep things simple, is you don't have to add a whole bunch of multiple conditions. You can pretty much handle a lot of logic with one logic statement here without having to build a lot of complicated and or statements. So this is really cool and really interesting. So let's save this question. And that's pretty much all it took to design that survey. And once again, to remind you, this was the experience. We're based on the question, or actually, let me start from scratch. Where if someone, just went in and said, "Hey, I'm not satisfied," or "I was satisfied," so it's going to skip all those questions. But if you're not satisfied, and the reason was the time it took to resolve the issue, we're going to ask the additional questions.
Cool. So let's think about that free trial, that expiration of a free trial. What ways can we use skip logic for that?
Sure. So in this example, I want to find out if a potential customer is interested in making a purchase after a free trial expires. And if they're not interested, well, I want to know why. This person just took the time, they installed the software, they went through the free trial. I want to know if it, if it's because it did not meet their needs, then I want to know, what features are really most important to them so that, I can make some changes and take action in my product roadmap going forward. So let's take a look at designing this survey. So I've enabled skip logic. And one of the things I wanted to point out is, you can reuse the same questions multiple times and set up unique skip logic for each individual question. So here I'm going to take my initial question that's reusable of, why are you not interested in making a purchase? Check all that apply. And then I'm going to drag over the next one of, hey, what features are needed to meet your needs? So once again, this question has a pick list, and some of the possible values that you could enter is, hey, I'm interested, but I'm not ready to purchase yet. or I decided to go with another solution provider, or I decided not to purchase any solution at this point in time. I'm just not ready to purchase yet. Or maybe the product does not meet our needs, or maybe I'm not happy with the price. So I'm going to skip this question if during the rating I got a thumbs down. So if someone's not interested after the free trial, I'm sorry, if someone gave a thumbs up, then I'm sorry, I know that they are interested. So if someone is not interested and gave a thumbs down, I would get asked this question. And once again, we can randomize the order of these questions, of these possible options to avoid option bias. So let's save this question. And now let's move on to the next one. And so this question is, hey, what features are needed to meet your needs? Click all that apply. And I've got some answers in here like maybe they want custom integrations or easier navigation, or needs that bulk export feature, or who doesn't want that virtual assistant that can anticipate customers' needs and make for a great experience. So we're going to turn on skip logic. And once again, it's going to be based off of that previous question of knowing if you're not interested. And once again, we're going to go with a does not contain if the product does not meet our needs. And once again, I can randomize the order of these. Let's save this question. And now let's go look at what this survey experience looks like. So remember before I was talking about making surveys friendly? So you have to support multiple device sizes and have responsive design for mobile, tablets, desktop. So here, hey, your free trial is about to expire in 2 days. Are you interested in taking, are you interested in, purchasing, a subscription? And so if the person says yes, says great, thank you very much. I've collected that feedback. And maybe you could change that to a sales rep, will be contacting you shortly. But if they said no, after they spent all that time going through the free trial, now I can ask these additional questions of, hey, you were interested but not ready to purchase, you decided to go with another solution providers, or the product does not meet our needs. So what if I put down the price, or the product does not meet our needs? As soon as I select that the product does not meet our needs, you see that I'm given now another question. So it doesn't skip this one. And now it lets me identify what features maybe I'm looking for in the next survey, or what features I'm looking for that would have impacted my purchase decision. And this can be super valuable, again, for your marketing team, for your product management team, to identify why you're losing out on sales and what your competition is doing, and really help shape your roadmap.
All right, so this is pretty great. We got this chance to see 3 different scenarios. So one of the things that I think we should go through, and Peter's going to walk us through this, is what do you need in order to use skip logic? Because we knew the setup was really, really complicated. That single click that literally took like one sort of finger to just go like skip logic, and then the ease of setup. So let's talk about some of the new things that you're going to need to use to use skip logic.
Yeah, so there's not really a lot here, but one thing skip logic does require you have is that you use the new landing page design. So it will not work with the old landing page design, but the good news is that you can transition to the new design right inside of Survey Builder. It makes it super easy. But you also have to keep in mind that, one of the other good things to keep in mind is that if you have an existing survey that uses the new landing page design, then it literally is just as easy as just clicking that button to enable skip logic. Some other things to keep in mind is that you cannot use a custom landing page with skip logic. And another a great thing is that you don't have to worry about turning it on and off and somehow impacting your survey data. Your survey results will always remain safe and unchanged, regardless of whether you're turning skip logic on or off. So a couple other improvements that I want to point out is now that there's, with one click, you can set up the force.com site. So this makes it really super easy to get that going. And this was a sort of a last minute enhancement we snuck in under the wire, and I'm super glad it made it into this release. A few other things to point out is that we've made some improvements to really help with the integrity of your survey data. So Recapture version 3 provides a human confidence score on survey records, and this can help you identify those pesky bots. You know, nothing's worse than throwing off your survey data if it isn't actually being answered by real humans. And then we also want to prevent, people taking the same survey multiple times, and we've added the prevention of duplicates, right inside of the, of Survey Builder, with the options to set them at on a per survey basis. So you can set them, with options such as 30 minutes, 1 day, 1 week, etc. And as I already showed you in the demos, you can now randomize the order of pick list answers to prevent option bias. Plus, we've been squashing a lot of bugs like crazy, and so that's gone, super well. So, Skip Logic is available now, as part of the latest release that we put on the AppExchange 2 weeks ago. There's no additional cost, so everyone who owns or buys Simple Survey will get Skip Logic included. So if you're ready to start using Skip Logic to design surveys that are simple, friendly, and timely, please go to the Simple Survey page on the AppExchange and install the latest release. And so here's our Simple Survey listing here on the AppExchange. You can just click Get It Now. And if you have looking for some additional information on Skip Logic, want to point out some additional resources, under customization guides, there's our documentation. And then you can also click on release notes. And just to see what those look like, here's our release notes, which talks about a lot of the things we talked about today with Skip Logic and reCAPTCHA. And then also on our documentation, here's where we've added Skip Logic, which gives you a quick guide on how to set up a question with Skip Logic.
All right. Well, it really wouldn't be a webinar where Salesforce products are involved if we didn't have the loved forward-looking statement. So we're going to talk about, or I'm going to talk about a few things that are coming up, and you should know that any purchase decisions you make about Simple Survey should be made based on the current release, what's currently out there, and not what might be coming soon. With that said, I'm going to let this slide self-destruct. It has been about 14, 15 seconds. So in this whole process, we've been working on this for a while. We've talked to a lot of people, and there were some common questions, and I want to just resolve a few. At this point, certainly, if you have other questions, please feel free to put them in the questions panel. We're going to keep answering whatever questions that we can. So the first question I want to address is skip logic the same as branch logic? So technically, no, but tactically, you can probably do some of the same kinds of things. If someone says, I want to do branch logic, does your product support that? I would say we use skip logic. Think about it this way. With a branch, you start from a question and then you create lots of different paths in different directions. So there might be all different pages and things like that. Those surveys that you hate that are really, really long, they typically use some form of branch logic to lengthen the survey. You answered this way, let's ask you 5 more questions. With one of those questions, you want that to launch into another collection of 5 or 10 questions. So the branching process creates these very, very long, complicated surveys. What skip logic does is it says, we would like to create a line of questions. So let's say you have 10 questions, which I think is more than you need on a survey. So based on the answer to any questions along the way, you can then choose to leapfrog over one question by saying, I'm going to be skipped if this condition occurs. So it really focuses on the shortening of the survey experience. Obviously, you can do things to say like, well, if they answer this way, we're going to show them this question. And if they answer another way, we're going to hide that question. So again, it's just philosophically, it's a little bit easier to manage. You don't have to think how deep those branches go. You can just keep one line and then skip over the questions that aren't appropriate. Second question, and this is an important one, is about when you're viewing a record in Salesforce, how do you know if skip logic was used? Well, at this point, You don't. And this is something that we're going to work on resolving. The survey record doesn't have a checkbox on it that says skip logic was used. It doesn't tell you which fields would have been skipped or wouldn't have been shown. It is just sort of a standard record detail page for the survey object. So what's going to happen is you'll have to kind of know your surveys and know that, oh, for this survey, this question would have been skipped in this condition. And that's something that you can look at, whether it's your reports or using insights. That's something that we expect to be doing in the future. Third question here is there a limit to the number of skips in a survey? Well, the answer to that is technically it is one less than your total number of questions, because the initial one-click question you can't skip. You need to actually click on an answer to go there. If you have a questionnaire style where there isn't actually a first question, it's just a link, then yes, you are skipping that question because there's nothing for some person to answer. But the scoring question, like your NPS, your CSAT, or your thumbs up, thumbs down, those questions have to be answered from that initial click in the email, and then you can change the answer on the landing page, and all of your conditions work from there. You can put a skip on every single question if that's what you want to do. Fourth question here, I love this question. Is it fair to say that Simple Survey has the only native Salesforce skip logic feature? I would say it's almost accurate. And that is to say that, Salesforce's survey tool has a form of redirecting to another question based on an answer. The way that they do it is a little bit strange. What they do is they say, oh, you're on question number 2, and if you answer it this way, go to question number 9. So it lets you do that leapfrog over a lot of other questions. The problem is that it doesn't error check, which means you could be on question 9 and you could say, well, if you answer it this way, go back to question number 2. So you can create loops, and Salesforce's product does not allow you to check for those loops. You have to just know I've created a loop for my customer. What we didn't demo today is when you reorder those questions, if you create a skip condition that doesn't work, it will stop you. It will actually flag you with an error and say, you can't skip a question based on an answer. You can't skip something based on something you haven't recorded yet. So we prevent that. We do a lot of error checking. It really makes building the skips very, very simple. And if you do want to reorder your questions, it reminds you like, oh, this question was skipped because of this condition. You need that to go first. So I would say it's fair to say that our approach to skip logic native to Salesforce is probably, in my opinion, the easiest to use and the most well crafted that we've seen that's native to the platform. So moving right along, when I think about taking a little bit of a look ahead, these are really great questions, and I wanted to address them here. And if you have more questions about looking forward, please feel free to use the questions panel. Are there any plans to enable people to skip questions based on data in Salesforce? I love this question. We see skip logic as a way to personalize the survey experience. Field values from related records is part of advancing that goal. So we're looking at that, and we're looking at other ways we can use that data that's built in to, it's related to the case, or it's related to the opportunity, or to that contact, to use in order to skip questions on surveys. That's not in this initial release, but we absolutely see that as something for the next stage of skip logic. And that leads me to my next question here. Now that skip logic is done, what's next for Simple Survey? Two pieces that are related to skip logic we have to address. One is that record viewer that I mentioned earlier, to show you that, yes, there was a skipped condition here. We want that to reflect. Right now, when you look at a record in Salesforce that's a survey record, it looks like a standard record detail page. It is, fields with values, very, very simple. We would like to do something that is more related to the survey experience so that you can really get a better sense of what the person was thinking, seeing, things like that. The second piece is Survey Insights. That tool's currently in beta. We believe that Survey Insights should also reflect skip conditions. And we also think that that aggregated data should give you a sense of what you're expecting to see versus what are exceptions. So realistically, with the next kinds of things for Simple Survey, think about those two as some pretty big pieces. And we've got some other stuff that I'm not going to mention yet, other than we have a nice deep roadmap for Simple Survey. So that's fair to say. So at this point, if you have any other questions, and along the way, I've been answering some people's individual questions or questions that I felt were good for the public along the way. But if there are other questions that you have about what you're seeing today or about other things related to Simple Survey, please use the questions panel.
We haven't had any additional questions come through just yet, but we had a question that I think is just worth mentioning that was answered in the questions box, that someone wanted to know whether it was these additional questions, can you make them optional? And, you know, what's like the best practice here? And Howard, you answered that best practice from Internet Creations is to actually keep those questions optional. Can you talk a little bit more about why? And then also, I think worth mentioning for perhaps people unfamiliar with Simple Survey, something that I think is one of my favorite features is our partial capture feature.
Yeah, so partial responses goes along well with skip logic and with basically letting customers or recipients not answer things. We think that some data is better than no data. We often see people make the mistake of requiring the survey recipient to answer things. I think the reason that's a mistake is you got to let customers stay in control. So when you enable partial responses, what that's going to do is that takes care of an abandonment problem. So imagine someone starts taking your survey, they answer the first question, they might do the second question, and then they're just like, I don't have time for this. So they simply just leave. What partial responses will do is it will capture what they've done in process, mark the record as partial, in that they didn't hit the submit button, and then you have some data to work with. The second thing there for the required questions is it basically says, if you don't answer this question, we won't let you submit the record. Some people absolutely want that. They're like, this is required, we need to have that there. When you combine a required question with a partial response, you still capture that bit of data, even if they decide, I don't want to answer that, and then they abandon. But we think that that required question is just something that tells the recipient, you have to do something, and it takes the control away from them. So Joe has a great thing. You also don't want to encounter an error with a required question. So yes, if you have a required question, when the recipient goes to submit it and it says, I'm sorry, you can't keep going, that required question basically makes them see sort of a, like, you have to go back and fix something. Now we handle that very gracefully on the landing pages. We zoom them back to the question that needs to be answered. We do all kinds of different things that way to make it really, really pleasant. But we certainly, we don't want to force people into doing things. There's a great couple questions that are jumping in here. Is partial responses always turned on even if you don't make it a required question? So partial responses is a feature that you can enable in Simple Survey. It's something in the setup of Simple Survey, you would turn on partial responses, and then it's on, and it's on for your surveys. I highly recommend people turning it on, but you should know that it's there. The reason you should know it is there is because the way partial responses works is it works in conjunction with the status of a survey. So if someone clicks on the response, they get a responded status. So it captures their initial score with a responded status. Once they start answering other questions, the status changes from responded to partial. And so wherever they are in their automation, that's partial. If they get to the complete and they hit the submit button, it then changes the status of that record to completed. So if you have automation that goes based on a completed survey and it hasn't been accounting for the status that should say completed, you might say, I only want the automation to fire based on a score. So that first question, when the status is either the responded or completed. But if the second question or the third question is partial, you might not want the person to get some kind of automation, maybe a follow-up event or something like that, because they didn't actually click submit. So you need to make sure that you're considering the status of the survey record when you're doing any kind of local automation. Another question that came in, is there a way to not allow a customer to answer the same survey multiple times? We've had several scenarios where a single client completes the survey multiple times with the same low scores. Yes, actually the prevent duplicates feature, we have a couple of different options for that. The way the prevent duplicates feature works, which is now per survey, is you create a window of time in which not to expect or not to accept multiple responses. So often when we're testing, we turn that off. We say never, keep getting multiple things. So when we're demoing, we always have that turned off. But in your survey program, you might want it to be set to something like a day or 2 weeks or some longer period of time, so that that invitation goes to a person, and once they click that initial record, it says, that's your survey, that's what you're going to do. So you absolutely can do that, because you don't want people keep hitting the same response. So yes, that's definitely a setting there. Another question here, do you have recommendations for recording responses to customer feedback? For example, if our success team follows up with a customer on a survey, should that be recorded in the case or in a field in the survey record? So it is Salesforce. So what we actually recommend is, if, let's say you're doing it, a survey program based on a case, and this is actually exactly how we have it set up for ourselves. That survey is related to the case, but because the survey record, I can see it, but the people reporting me, so the survey results that are coming from them, I as their manager, I see those surveys, but the individual people can't see the surveys. So the follow-up processes go to me. So any kind of local automation, like a task creation, or some other thing that says for me to reach out to the person, I'm seeing that, but my reports aren't going to see that because of the way the records are owned. We think just having a surveys related list, either on the account or the contact, or you can add it to the case as well. With it there, you might have people not being able to see that a survey was recorded. You can also do certain things with different fields to say, like, hey, if a survey has been received on this case, make sure that you click a checkbox. That also might play into what we're doing with survey fatigue, where if a contact's been surveyed frequently, you check a box on the contact that says they've been surveyed. The last time they were surveyed, it was on this date, so that you don't survey them 9, 10, 12 times within a span of 2 weeks. So hopefully that answers those questions.
Yeah, and this speaks really great what Howard was talking about that whole 360-degree view of the customer. The fact that Simple Survey is integrated right with Salesforce, just means that everyone now has access to that data. So whether it's the product manager or the customer support manager looking at responses, or if it's the salesperson who's following up on a renewal, he'll see those surveys. So it's I mean, based on who you set up, that you can have access to that information. But it really gives you an opportunity, and I want you to really think about how you can set these surveys up so they serve your entire organization and not just one department. So were there any other questions, Howard?
I think we covered everything that's in right now.
Cool. Adrian?
Awesome. Yeah, so I actually do want to also point out to all of you guys, currently right now, during this time, we're trying to support our customers and potential customers. We have a 60-day trial. If you're not currently using Simple Survey right now, we're extending it from 21 days to 60 days to help support everybody right now with surveys and feedback. Yes, if you guys want to reach out to our product managers, you can schedule one-on-one time with them by just following this link. I know Howard put this into the chat as well. And then also join the Service Experience Week group on the Trailblazer community. Very interesting there as well. Also, the link is ic.force.com/trailblazer. But again, that's in the chat if you guys want to just copy and paste that in. And yes, we have our upcoming webinar, Becoming a Master Builder with Lightning App Builder. So save the date, especially to all you admins out there. It's June 11th at 1 p.m. Our Lightning champion, Benjamin Brasher, will be presenting. So it's going to be a very great webinar. So yeah, thank you all so much for joining us. It was wonderful having you guys here, and also to our presenters for going through all of the skip logic.
Thank you.
Survey, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. This was great.